I always knew I was different. As a child, I didn't have many friends, and was always the subject of ridicule. Isolation in the real world pushed me to the digital, the only place my creativity was seen as something to be celebrated rather than something to be stifled out. I spent hours stuck in front of the screen, desperately clinging to these facsimiles of reality where my mind was allowed to run free. As I sat there, eyes locked to the computer screen, I couldn't help but ask myself,
why the did they add Huggy Wuggy to Minecraft?
Growing up, I was obsessed with Minecraft. Well, me and every kid my age was. I would watch all the old school YouTubers, play the game with my friends on my PS3. I even had that one poster on my wall, you know the one. One of my fondest memories as a little 12-year-old was walking downstairs on Christmas Day and seeing Minecraft PlayStation 3 edition on my family's miniature flat screen, and ignoring my extended family for the rest of the day with my eyes glazed over playing the game. Minecraft was unlike anything I had ever seen before, and I could talk for hours about how I had nightmares about Herobrine, or my first upload to YouTube being a Minecraft parody of Thrift Shop by Macklemore, just in case you were worried about me being too popular. I was so desperate for Minecraft content that I started playing the sloppy seconds like Pixel Gun 3D and Survival Craft. Never Terraria though. This box art always struck me as something that somebody would be playing in a sitcom or something. Also, I f***ing hate Terraria. When I entered high school around 2018, my entire grade had a collective Minecraft server, but since I had the console version exclusively, I wasn't able to join, so I did what I had to. I went on Reddit and made a post about how I was so broke I couldn't afford Minecraft and was forced to play Fortnite to gaslight someone into giving me their login. Look, I might have been a sociopath, but I am still playing on that account to this day. If my computer was open, I was playing Minecraft, so to say that the game has been more than present in my life would be an understatement. In recent years, Minecraft has become what I would sort of describe as one of my backup games. If I'm not feeling like wholly engaging with a piece of art, but my fingers need something to do, Minecraft. Whenever a new update rolls around, I see discourse surrounding whatever Mojang added absolutely ruining the game. Given the fact that this is the best-selling game of all time, it's not exactly a shock that there would be a buzz with every new update. But the absolute outrage I see every time there's a minor change is kind of ridiculous. I don't want to be a mindless drone here. People are allowed to have different opinions. That's what makes discussion of any piece of art interesting. But I f***ing hate how people talk about Minecraft. People don't have criticisms of this game, they only have hit tweets. So many people look at this with nostalgia blinders on and treat it like it's still being made by gaming's J.K. Rowling in his basement, and not the best-selling video game of all time with almost zero contemporaries. Or alternatively, I see that people think this grand vision was paved over by the greedy overlords over at Microsoft. To be fair, I wouldn't trust my baby in the hands of the people who made sneakers. An argument I've heard very often is that Mojang's recent additions have changed the game to be much more of a cozy game in the same vein of Stardew Valley, but I'd beg to differ. I'm not gonna pretend like the game hasn't changed aesthetically. A couple of years ago, Mojang went in and redid all the textures in the game to make it more visually cohesive and fit more with what newer items looked like. The problem with this was that many people, me included, found the original textures iconic at this point. It's like looking at Super Mario Bros. On the NES versus Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo. While one is definitely more technically and artistically competent, the other has been around for so long and ingrained itself in my brain enough that I prefer it. Minecraft's original art style is very thrown together. Assets made by a guy just trying to make something that kind of resembles what might be a pig. Take a moment to actually look at the creeper. What the f*** am I looking at? Minecraft now has an art team trying to make a version of the game that has some thought put into how it's presented. I'm not saying that either version is better. I have immense nostalgia for the original, and the new version looks a lot softer and up to code. But replacing anything that's become iconic is gonna be met by backlash no matter what. People saw the team replace the shape of the ores to be distinct from each other and damn near had a conniption. Both graphical styles have their pros and cons, but I think a lot of people's problems aren't even with the actual changes, rather that there was even a change in the first place. Minecraft is a game old enough to be a part of multiple age groups' childhood at this point, and people don't like it when you with their childhood. Go up to any group of 30-year-olds and tell them that Ben 10 looks like this now, I guarantee it will end up on the news. I always hear people say that the old version had charm, and I agree, but they also say that building things was better at it, and that I'm a bit more mixed on. The fact that there wasn't a vast palette of blocks to work with in the early versions did give the game a much more distinct visual style, leading to amateur builds still looking competent next to pro builds, but it's also really hard to say that giving the player more options is a bad thing. In my episode on Animal Crossing New Horizons, I spoke a bit on how the series lost a lot of the trademarks of visual design that made the series distinct, so I'm not a mindless supporter of a style changing, but I do truly think that the modern style of Minecraft is to the benefit of the game and its players. If there is one small nitpick I have, it is the lack of harsh shadows. As much as I'm gonna bitch about nostalgia creeps, I do genuinely think the softer lighting that's used now does make some of the more atmospheric areas, like caves and mine shafts, feel less mysterious, although I do think it makes man-made structures look much better. I do feel like a major issue is Minecraft does slightly fall into the trappings of other open-world games, where large stretches of land don't really have anything to do in them. Mojang has taken great effort to try and populate the overworld with tons to do, but the majority of it is still wide open plains with nothing but trees and dirt, and when you do stumble upon a structure, the chances are you probably are only gonna find some mid-tier items. I think that the scarcity of these structures kind of leads to the world feeling empty, and I don't think it's in a way that the game was intended to be. Minecraft has always been an empty and open world, but it also always had an abandoned feel, with all the remnants of civilization that no longer exists. I wish it had more of that feeling. Some of my most fond memories in the game are being up at 2 AM sneaking through a destroyed village, and I do feel like Mojang has attempted to make this more evident with the additions of things like ruined nether portals and ancient cities, but I also feel like these aren't nearly as prevalent as I'd like in the world. I'm not asking there to be a fucking loot crate every 6 feet away, but so much of my time in Minecraft is just spent walking in a straight line doing nothing of note, and once I get there, my reward is whatever bullshit I keep in my pocket. I haven't fed him in months, I'm starting to get concerned. If I do have one criticism of Minecraft, it is that its loot pools are strangely stingy. I'm not asking for full enchanted armor sets every single chest, but the amount of times I'll push through a woodland mansion or mineshaft just to get like 2 diamonds, a cursed gold hoe, and a handful of wheat seeds is kind of unreal. This is most likely because Mojang doesn't want to ruin progression for first-time players who just stumble upon these structures, but in turn it makes these massive escapades feel kind of useless for the amount of effort you have to put into them. I feel like Mojang either has to increase the amount of structures like this, or make it more worth it to go on to these vast adventures. Another complaint I see is that the updates are either extremely underwhelming, or remove too much of Minecraft's core identity. And to a degree I understand, but you have to remember Minecraft's core was this for 15 years. I am defending this game, right? Minecraft has done so much to quietly make the game more cohesive and engaging, while not just steamrolling over what people love about the original versions of the game. People complain about the infrequency of Minecraft's updates like it's supposed to be a live service game, something akin to Fortnite, and while it is somewhat live service, it's not like its contemporaries right now. The game is a fully completed product in my eyes, and everything they've added for the past 15 years is kind of a big cherry on top of the full product, whereas something like Genshin Impact or Zenless Zone Zero is a forever game that's never really fully complete, and unlike Minecraft, sucks. Back in the day, the updates were even more infrequent, but they were also way more impactful, introducing a bunch of new aspects to the game, whereas today we get smaller bite-sized updates, usually only focusing on 1 or 2 things. I think this is where a lot of the confusion comes in, where people have this idea that every update is supposed to be a major shakeup to the game's core, expecting it to blow their minds, when nowadays the average update is just giving the game a quick spit shine. That doesn't mean all these updates are winners or excuse some of the sloppier stuff, but I also think that people think the Mojang devs are smashing hammers into their skulls and updating the caves by accident. Many of these updates backdoor future usage of items, but people's first impression can sort of blind their judgment of them. For example, copper. Upon its introduction, it could rust, redirect lightning. That's the end of the sentence. This was one of those minor additions that got hyped to hell and back, understandably since this was an addition requested for years, and its extremely minor implementation disappointed me and many others a ton. The thing thing is, this was just part 1 of its implementation, because when the next update came along, they added a plethora of uses for the material. Now let's be clear, I don't think that this is perfect, but it's nothing that's worth sending someone into a frenzy. A lack of a shakeup to the core Minecraft quest has led to a lot of longtime fans feeling like the game has stagnated or instead focused on the pedantic instead of the main focus of the game, and I do understand this to a degree. I also understand why someone would turn to perjury. The main Minecraft quest is far too iconic to make any sort of major change, so of course Mojang isn't going to deviate from what's already known. Instead, they've opted to create a bunch of side quests like the trial chambers and abandoned cities, deviations from your main path that can feel somewhat substantial. My main issue is that I feel like some of these little breakoffs could relate to each other a little better. 15 years out and I still don't know what the purpose of fighting the Wither is. A lot of what's here feels very disjointed, but I do feel like that's also intentional. They don't want to create false leads that have you running in circles if you're a new player. Honestly, I just wish there were more boss fights or genuine challenges like the Wither Warden, since a lot of the enemies in the game don't really pose any sort of challenge late game aside from these guys. I think if you've grown tired of Minecraft's supposed stagnation, achievements are a great way to change your core Minecraft game loop, as it forces you out of that straight ahead to the end. I don't find myself going for achievements often in video games because it usually doesn't add to the core experience, but Minecraft's are more of a map of things to do than anything. They give you incentive to go out of your min-maxing mindset and make your own side quests. I think it's a very overlooked aspect of the game aside from saying, "Isn't it Iron Pick?" 30 minutes in. Without the traditional NPCs or story mode of other similar open world games, this is likely how you're intended to find out how to progress in the game. Well, I guess they did do a story mode, but I don't trust anything that includes the fucker who made Minecraft v Harlem Shake. Given that you're watching this, it's likely that you discovered Minecraft through a content creator or know Minecraft's main quest through cultural osmosis. But you have to keep in mind that Mojang has to keep the toddler who just picked up an iPad for the first time in mind, instead of Jimmy No Life who speedruns the game with his Twitch buddies. The majority of people who complain about Minecraft's direction these days would also throw a tantrum if Minecraft changed anything about the game's main progression. And if they don't change anything, they're still gonna complain. The fact of the matter is that most people complaining aren't upset that Minecraft feels different, they're mad they're not 12 anymore. For years, people were begging for an update to the caves and mining, but the second that the caves and cliffs update was pushed, there was an instant outcry of annoyance because it messed with the min-maxing strats that used to exist. Same with adding new tools above diamond. Massive complaints because the netherite was just too rare. Of course it's fucking rare! It's the most powerful resource in the game! You'd expect it to just be sitting there? I'm losing my fucking mind! Is it annoying to get lost in a maze of 12 interconnecting caves? Yes! You know what else is annoying? Idling at your computer for an hour walking in one direction holding the mouse down to receive the most diamonds possible. These changes weren't made in a vacuum by the staff at Mojang. There is so much to consider in how the game is designed, it's ridiculous. And if you want the game to continue to be updated, you have to accept that it might not be the exact version of the game you've been playing since you were 8. I just don't understand this nostalgia-based mindset. You saw this indie game get bought by a multi-billion-dollar company, outsell every single version of Tetris, and expected it to look exactly the same? Bitch, Tetris couldn't even stop itself from evolving. You should be lucky Minecraft is even recognizable. There are multitudes of examples of games that get bought out or get run down by a parent company, sometimes making the game unrecognizable to the original. And you're mad because the sniffer is kind of lame? Microsoft does not have to continue developing Java Edition. Hell, I'm sure they're itching to axe it. The second they had a functioning version of Bedrock Edition, they could have wiped the Java version off the map entirely. But they didn't because they were committed to keeping the game's mod community alive and making sure the original version was around if they preferred to play it. It's not like Microsoft or Mojang force you to even play the modern version of Minecraft. You can completely ignore it. When you purchase the game, you can download literally every update that has ever been pushed on the game for free. If you're still mad about that combat update they put out over 10 years ago, you can still go back and play before it was implemented. And if you care that much about this sort of thing, you probably already know that. I think my main issue with all this criticism is not the fact that people have their gripes with Minecraft, it more just seems that they want to play a different video game. If you want a more adventure-focused sandbox with more in-depth combat mechanics, go play Hytale. If you want a less restrictive creation system, play Gmod. If you want the game to be more like the mods, just download the fucking mods! The only thing stopping you from downloading the Jenny mod is fear. I'm not trying to dick ride the Microsoft Corporation for keeping this game up. If anything, this is just them apologizing for ruining PC gaming for a few years there with games for Windows Live. Then we've got the people who see an obvious bug in the game, publicly abuse it, and then get surprised when it gets patched. Was it fun to make a monorail by clipping the sulfur cube into a ceiling? Of course. But to think that the extremely obvious exploit wasn't gonna be patched out is moronic. To remind you again, again, Minecraft is the best-selling video game of all time, and they want their game to look polished. Back in the day when I was grafted to Minecraft PS3 edition, I was aware of an exploit where you could duplicate a block temporarily, allowing you to infinitely generate diamond. I felt like a fucking genius figuring this out and had so much fun becoming overpowered in minutes. But I didn't throw a fucking Twitter temper tantrum when they got rid of it. Of course they got rid of it! It was an obvious bug! Do you get mad at the mechanic when he fixes your car because you thought the check engine light was pretty? I just feel like the majority of people complaining have never seen their game get bastardized the second they saw a hit of success, and want mindless additions that work against the game rather than a cohesive experience. Do you want to know what you get when you add without consideration for design? You get Hello Neighbor. And nobody wants to be Hello Neighbor. The game initially was conceptualized as a stealth game focused on one strong environment and a single hyper-intelligent force that would adapt to you. But once the game caught the eye of the mascot horror crowd, they altered the game's vision without altering the mechanics, leading to a game that feels extremely unfocused. Alongside this, the art style became much more flanderized, going from a somewhat asymmetrical cartoonesque style to a complete over-the-top exaggerated neon art style that clashed heavily with the game's somewhat nefarious tone. The game started with a very strong core premise, but through the updates, the game lost the focus on what its core was, in turn making a game that still hasn't lived down its momentous failure. Now let's be fair here, not every addition to the game has been a hit. Archaeology is both obscure and very not well developed. Oceans are still way too big with almost jack dick to do, and the Minecraft marketplace, yeah, that's been nothing but bad. What started as an attempt to bring the modding scene to console has turned into, well, I don't really even know, something between a bad Fortnite collaboration and the front page of Roblox. I have never once been playing Minecraft and thought, oh, this would be better if fucking Huggy Wuggy was here. In very recent years, it's clear that Minecraft and Mojang have been making an attempt to expand the Minecraft IP, with collaborations both inside and outside Minecraft, spin-offs to the title, and even a movie, with all of these having various levels of success. I just have a hard time finding myself getting upset with these when they're bad, even if it's so clearly corporate meddling, because it hasn't affected the main game in any way. Okay, they did add the Lava Chicken song from the Minecraft movie into the game, but I kind of just find that charming in a weird Street Fighter the movie the game way. Look, Minecraft has changed, I'll give you that, but to say it's soulless or the devs are just sitting on their ass is kind of a ridiculous statement. Minecraft, for all its flaws, is still the same game at its core, and its sandbox nature allows you to pretty much ignore all the pedantic garbage you're not interested in. For a game with such an emphasis on imagination, it always strikes me just how little creativity people have when talking about it. How often they end up missing the forest for the trees. What's a game that honestly should have died years ago is still actively getting updated without completely ruining the core experience. Someone playing Minecraft in the current year is still playing the same game as I was over 15 years ago, just with even more avenues to create what they want. Hell, in a world where the level creator has been made almost completely irrelevant, seeing a game succeeding off of such a simple premise is honestly kind of inspiring. Seriously, why the f*** is Huggy Wuggy in this game? I'd make like a joke about it or something, but nothing's funnier than this image. Maybe this one.